Hello Silver friends, this is Joli from QuickSilverHair. You have questions about UV protective products? I've got answers. In this video, we're going to cover your top 10 questions for using UV protection for your hair. I have an ultimate guide blog post on sun damage, and it covers a lot of details and it covers a lot of information, including product recommendations. So if you want to check that out, it'll be linked in the description box below. But in this video, we're going to talk about how they work, what to look for, when to use them, application issues, and even the challenges of UV products. There is a corresponding blog post to this video as well, and it will be linked in the description box below if you want to open it and follow along, or check it out after this video is over. It's down there. So let's get started and I'll answer your questions. Question number 1, is UV damage and protection laboratory tested? Yes, sort of. The science on the effectiveness of hair sunscreens is somewhat lacking. However, the data on UV damage to hair is quite prolific and we know quite a lot. The first issue that arises in the lab when testing hair samples for UV damage is that they have to use artificial light and artificial simulations. So you're already eliminating one factor, and that is real life. It is also time consuming and costly. So many brands at this point are not going to invest the money in a singular product to have it lab certified. So in real life, we have repeated exposure to sunlight at different times of the day for different lengths of time, in addition to our grooming practices, washing, drying, brushing, and heat styling our hair, plus various hair chemical processing, our lifestyle, and the region of the world that we live in. These are all influences on how a product actually works, and you can't really account for that in the lab. The next issue is all of the hair types and all of the hair colors that and how they respond differently to UV exposure. So again, this really all adds up to real world and real life that cannot be easily, adequately, and cost effectively studied in a laboratory. That all said, we do know that UV damages the hair, and we do know that we need to protect it, either with a product or a physical barrier. Number 2, are products for UV protection for hair certified like sunscreen for skin? Not usually. Skin sunscreen is a non-prescription drug and it is FDA approved. This means that it has to meet certain FDA guidelines for safety and efficacy. Hair sunscreens are not classified this way. They are classified as cosmetics and not drugs, so they don't have to meet these standards. While some labs do test for UV protection, it hasn't been rated the same way as SPF. You won't normally see an SPF rating on a hair product unless it includes an SPF product for the scalp, like Koola's Scalp and Hair Mist. As more cost-effective and time-efficient protocols for hair-specific UV products are developed, we may actually see certified products come about, but right now that's just not a thing. Number 3, when you say UV damages the hair, what do you mean? Aside from the visible yellowing, damage includes degradation of the lipid layer that protects the cuticle, protein loss, dryness, brittleness, and breakage, discoloration, dullness and loss of sheen, rough texture, and split ends. These damages are accumulative. The longer your hair is or the more you are out in the sun, the more UV damage your hair will accumulate. The darker pigments in your hair actually protect your hair from UV damage, especially visual damage. So when you lose all of that pigment, you lose all of that protection. Number 4, does your hair type affect its response to UV exposure? Yes, your hair color plays the primary role in how it responds to UV damage. The lighter and whiter your hair is, the more susceptible it is to damages. The darker your hair is, even dark gray, the less prone it will be to the visible damages like yellowing, but it is still damaged by UV. It just takes a little bit longer and it's a little bit slower process. While white hair is more reflective and absorbs less UV without pigment to protect it, it is the most susceptible to UV damage, especially visual changes like discoloration and yellowing. Whatever your hair color is, you still need UV protection because UV affects all hair. Your actual hair type plays the secondary role in how susceptible your hair will be to sun damage. The thinner and finer your hair, the more protected it needs to be. Your ethnicity also plays a role, with Asians having stronger hair and African hair types being weaker and more brittle. The higher your porosity is will also mean the more prone your hair is to UV damage. The more chemical treatments you have, the more prone you are to UV damage. The longer your hair is and the more exposure you have to the sun, the more accumulative UV damage you will have. Number 5, what is the biggest issue with UV protective products? The most significant issue is the surface area of the hair. It's very difficult to coat all of your hair from root to tip, every single strand, and get it 100% coated, which is what would be required to have it UV protected 100%. Barring actually dunking your head in the product and soaking your hair for a couple of minutes, you cannot achieve 100% protection. This is similar to sunscreen, of course. We've all missed a spot when putting sunscreen on, only to find out later that we have a sunburn in one spot. Number 6, why can't I just use sunscreen for my skin on my hair? Well, you can, but there are some issues with the ingredients used for skin that don't necessarily work well for your hair. Due to their texture, the sunscreens we use on our skin are not ideal for putting on our hair because they can make our hair feel gritty, weighed down, greasy, and overall just a terrible feeling to the hair. In addition, some of these sunscreens ingredients can also discolor lighter shades of hair. According to Michael Anthony Salon, oxybenzone and avobenzone can react to chlorine and turn lighter shades of hair yellow or green. Titanium dioxide and zinc oxide can build up on the hair, causing discolorations and dullness. This is why we need hair-specific sunscreens with UV filters and different ingredients to help protect the hair without making it feel terrible, look greasy, or discolor our silvers. Number 7, can a product claim UV protection just because it contains a UV protective ingredient? Pretty much, because as I said before, it is not FDA regulated when it comes to hair sunscreen, unless it actually has an SPF property to it for the scalp. So to make sure you're getting a product that has UV protection in it, you want to make sure that the company is actually claiming that about that specific product. Just because it contains a UV ingredient doesn't necessarily mean there's enough of it to be effective. In the blog post, I have a list of ingredients if you want to go check that out and see what kind of ingredients you would be looking for in a UV protective product. Some companies do test and they do know the efficacy of their products and the ingredients in those products. They usually will claim this. If you are curious or you want to know if they've actually tested it, you can contact them. Bounce Curl is one of these companies. They did test their Moisture Balance leave-in and it is rated for up to 5 hours of UV exposure. Not all UV protection is created equal, so not all hair types are going to respond to the same way to different types of UV protection. So you're going to have to find the one that works for you. Unfortunately, sometimes you're not going to know it's not working until it's not working. In my ultimate guide on sun damage, I do have recommendations for products, so if you want to check that out, it is listed in the description box below. Number 8, do UV hair protectants work at peak UV hours? Yes, if it has been applied properly in the last 3 to 5 hours. After that, the efficacy will diminish. Number 9, do hair UV protectants work until the next wash day? No, just like regular skin sunscreen, they will degrade over time. They also rub off on your pillowcase, your hands, and your clothing. So you want to reapply them before going out into the sun. So that brings me to number 10. Should I add UV protection before I go out with each exposure to the sun? Yes, just like physical sunscreens, they degrade over time. So you want to make sure you're applying them before you go out into the sun. Additionally, when out for extended periods of time, using a physical barrier like a hat, a buff, or umbrella or shade is the best benefit, because you will at least know that your hair is not in direct sunlight. Wearing a protective hairstyle like a braid, a bun, or a French twist and coating the outer layer of your hair with a UV protective product is also really beneficial and really helpful. I would say that you make sure you follow the instructions on the bottles. Make sure that you section your hair and apply it evenly. You don't want to just spray a little light mist on the exterior of your hair, because remember, the surface area of the hair is huge and that won't adequately give you the protection you need. So that's it for this video. I hope I was able to answer your questions. There is that corresponding blog to this post and the ultimate guide. They're both linked below in the description box. And any products I have mentioned are also linked in the description box below. While you're down there, join my weekly newsletter if you want to hear about new content. That's the best way to stay in touch with me. If you have additional questions or comments on UV protection, please leave those in the comments section below. I love the discussions on my videos. That's one of my favorite parts, is talking to you. And while you're down there, if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do so now, because I would love to see you next time. Until then, shine on.